we're all rigged. The boat next to us has gone out, the photo rib's out there, so we're ready to go, and we're actually getting a little bit of breeze, so this is looking like a lovely day. We'll see you out there, come on. Hi, it's Theo Stocker here for Yachting Monthly, and I've come to Slovenia to test the brand new Elan Impression 43. I saw this boat at the Dusseldorf boat show earlier in the year, and I've been excited to come and test it ever since. It's 20 years since Elan have brought out a new family cruising boat in this size range, so this replaces the old Elan 434, which had a number of guises over the years. They've gone back to Humphries yacht design for the new boat, and it's very much an evolution rather than a revolution of the old design. And so far I'm pretty impressed with it. So we're sailing out of Portorož at the southern end of the small Slovenian coastline. I've got Croatia up ahead of me and Italy somewhere behind me. We've got not much gradient wind today, so we've got a little bit of a thermal wind building. So far we've got between about 8 and 10 knots of true wind speed, which isn't a whole lot, but when the wind's up at 10 knots, it gives me about 13 or 14 true wind across the deck, and I'm getting somewhere between 35 and 40 degrees to the apparent wind. And as the wind builds a little bit, I'm getting speeds just over 6 knots, but normally we're sort of between 5.5 and 6 knots so far. The Helm is a twin wheel and twin rudder arrangement. So we're on the wind at the moment and it's building a little bit. We're back up to 10 knots, doing 6.5 knots and sailing a little bit free at 40 degrees to the wind. We've got a twin wheel with a twin rudder setup. It feels nice and tight and pretty light. As with double rudders, sometimes not getting loads of feedback from the boat. There's just enough to tell me what the boat's doing, and I suspect as the wind gets up over 10 knots I'll get a little bit more feedback. So the little bit of breeze that we did have has died away to sort of 4 or 5 knots of true wind speed. It's a little bit disappointing. So I've got some of the numbers for sailing upwind when we had a bit more breeze. In the meantime we're motoring downwind to see if we can find a little bit more off Piran down here. Now this boat's fitted with an 80 horsepower Yanmar, although standard is 40 horsepower and there's a middle of the road option for 57 horsepower. We're doing 2,200 RPM, so the engine's not working at all, and the boat is doing 8.1 to 8.3 knots. So arguably the boat is a little bit overpowered. Probably get away with the 57 horsepower feeling more than enough, and it's got a FlexFold 3-bladed prop on this boat. While we're going along, I just thought I'd show you some of the Helm station. Now this boat comes with Helm seats aft, and you can have a grill barbecue in one of them and a fridge in the other as an option if you want that, or you just have them as deck stowage. We can have a look inside those. We've got twin wheels, which are composite wheels with Jeffer steering, and you've got this quite nice Pininfarina designed pedestal that's got loads of space. One little feature that I really like is that outboard you've got an instrument repeater, so that if you're sitting out towards the side you can see your numbers without having to stand up behind the pedestal. That's a really nice thing. We've got autopilot control, chart plotter, anchor windlass control, and down here I've got the engine control as well. Under here there is a rope bin, so that's for any additional lines. There's also a deck power socket, waterproof, watertight ones in there, so you can plug your phones in while you're at the helm. Nice little touch, and that drains down overboard. And then we've got the backstay control here, This one's got a split backstay with a mechanical furler. From Selden, you can probably opt for the Harken hydraulic one if you wanted a little bit more power. On a day like today, we don't need to crank too much backstay on to depower anything. We've got a 9/10 fractional rig, which is deck stepped, so you've got a little bit of control over mast bend, but not loads probably. Reasonably chunky mast profile, and then you've got outboard. You've got these nice little Helm crew seats, so you can somebody can sit next to you and chat and enjoy the view forwards. It's also worth mentioning with the Helm station that I've got the jib sheet just here, so I can put that on the winch and I can winch that in really easily from the Helm station. There's no space to sit forward of the wheel, but I can do that, so I can tack the genoa really easily. If I want to do the main sheet, I have to go forward to the coach roof. That doesn't come aft, but actually when you're tacking, you don't need to do that, and the boom is well clear of everybody's heads. Well, we've finally got a little bit more wind now, and we are making our way back upwind. We've actually just stopped for a little bit of lunch, and before that we were sailing with the Genokrupp, which is a furling, sort of asymmetric spinnaker, nothing too full, so we could get quite high angles, which is nice in these light winds. We've got about 9-10 knots of wind at the moment, but we were down to 4 or 5 just before lunch. So it wasn't really quite enough to get the boat going, but now that we've got some breeze, we're up and off. We are doing about 5.5 knots at somewhere about 33-35 degrees to the wind. Got fairly simple sail controls. We've got a mainsail on a bridle on the coach roof. We haven't got a traveller, so it's a kicking strap and a main sheet, and that's controlled from the electric winch on the coach roof. So I don't need to go to that if I'm tacking. But I've got the spinnaker winch, the Genoa jib winch just here, and there's an option on this boat for a self-tacking jib if you want it, but I think the extra sail area of a Genoa is nice. This boat definitely feels like quite an easily driven hull. I mean, it's a big, wide, high volume boat. It's slightly narrower waterline than her predecessor, the 434. But the beam is carried all the way aft, which makes it a slightly more sort of powerful hull shape, albeit possibly gives a little bit more wetted surface area, which slows you down a little bit in those very light winds. Right, just while we're going upwind, I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about the cockpit. As you can see, it's a really wide cockpit, and we've actually got L-shaped seats at the front. In the olden days, a secure cockpit was one that was quite narrow, so you could brace, but this one has got really nicely 2 folding tables either side of the companionway. So you've got a clear walk through down below and to the stern, but it keeps you nice and secure when you're on these seats. So there's a bracing bar across the bottom, or you've got these really high coamings outboard. I mean, you're really secure. We haven't got the spray hood up today, but I'm almost entirely sheltered from the wind from just how high these are. So if you've got a family on board or little children, this actually feels really secure. From that point of view, I really like it. You've got really big grab holds on top of the handles, and then you've got a decent working space for handling the lines and halyards. You can see we've got all the lines going down below at the moment, but if you had some rope bags fitted here, then you could tidy those up a little bit, which would probably be nice if you're cruising, because you don't want people tripping over the lines below. Up on the windward side then, here you can see the bracing. You can brace against the table, tuck yourself in, and if you're not involved in the sailing, you can stay very much out of the way if you want to, and that's one of the advantages of this L-shaped cockpit. L-shaped seating is that you can actually have somebody using the winches while you're out of the way, and then the jib winches aft next to the helm station, so you've got this section here that isn't really involved in the sailing if you don't want to be. So that's probably a really good combination for a crew. Right, well, while we're sailing downwind, let me just show you around on deck. As you can see, we've got these big high coamings, and there's a little grip patch for stepping around them at the back. They're not too high if you want to step over and come straight onto the side deck. We've got the spray hood off at the moment, just so we could see the boat a little bit better, but we'll put that back on later when we're in anchor, and we can have a look at that, and there's a full bimini as well. And then just forward of the spray hood, you can see we've got the bridle main sheet system, so that's in the middle of the boom. and that comes with a powered winch. I found that that's plenty of purchase and power to get the mainsail in as we've needed to today. What you can't do without a traveller is sort of move the boom up and down once you've set the twist of the mainsail, so you'll rely on the kicking strap a little bit more. But then we've got these big stainless steel handrails, which are really nice. They come from just in front of the handrail and they go all the way forwards until you can hold on to the shrouds. You'll see here we've got the jib sheets led aft. They come aft on deck, but they're through little fair leads, and that's neatly kept to the side of the side deck. And then we've got the jib cars. You can see here we've got the jib cars. They're not towable. I mean, it's a cruising boat, so they're pin ones, so you lift the pin up, slide them to where you want them. So if you do need to move them while you're sailing, you'll either have to luff up a bit, ease the sail out, or put a quick tack in. But that's as you'd expect on a cruising boat. At the mast then, we've got large Selden spars with a strut kicker as well, so if you drop the main without the topping lift attached, yeah, we've taken the topping lift off today, so that'll still support the weight of the sail and the boom. And then all the lines come down here and are led aft. Just below here you can see we've got the window. It's called a semi-deck saloon. And the lines are led aft over that, and then here aft through the tunnels and back to the clutches and winches on the coach roof. There's plenty of grip moulding, so it's got the dimple effect. And we haven't been heeling very much and it's dry, but it feels pretty grippy. I've got my sailing shoes on as well, of course. Stack pack, and you'll notice that the head of the sail is going to be quite high when you drop the sail. So at the mast, we've got mast steps here so that you can climb up and reach to the head of the sail when you're dropping it or when you're attaching the halyard, which is a nice touch. Right, let's have a look on the foredeck. On the foredeck then, you've got a really wide open space. At the front here, you've got a little bit of flexi teak or synthetic teak, and the same on the side decks. That's an option, but you've got little pop studs here, so you can put your sun pad on the front, which if you're going to use this boat for Mediterranean sailing, which I suspect a lot of these boats are going to be used for, then a sun pad is really important. At the front then, you've got a furling line for the genoa coming forwards. We've also got the furling line for the asymmetric spinnaker, or the jenica, slightly flatter than a spinnaker really, and that's set at the moment, and we're sailing along nicely with that. And then at the forward end of the foredeck, we've got a forepeak for stowing bulky items, fenders, and off-wind sails. We've got an anchor locker and the bowsprit. I'll show you those in a bit more detail. Right, on the foredeck then, let's have a quick look in here. We've got your forepeak, there you go, that's full of fenders, and that's hull depth. You can see there's a black circle there, and that's your gas bottle stowage. I think that's the only gas bottle stowage on the boat though, so you'll have to come up with another one of those or somewhere else if you want to keep a spare bottle on board, which I'd imagine most cruisers will. Coming forwards then, we've got the anchor locker. That clips back, and in here you can see, if you can see that, quite a good deep drop. There's slightly sloping bulkhead here, so you might get a little bit of chain piling there from the electric windlass on here. And you've got buttons to control the windlass to the side of it, or there's buttons back in the cockpit on the Helm console. The chain goes forward through the bowsprit. Let's have a look here. So you can see that going through the bow roller there underneath the bowsprit. This is a moulded bowsprit that's bolted on. It's supported with a little bobstay though, so you can put furling headstails there, and you can see the anchor on the front of it as well. Right, let's go back to the cockpit. It's probably time to drop this spinnaker as well, so we'll go and furl it. Hi guys, so as you can see, we're back in harbour now, and we've put the bimini up and we've put the spray hood up to give us a little bit of shade from the sun. The sun's actually going down now. It's been quite a warm day, so I'm happy with that. Anyway, I haven't shown you down below yet, so let's go and have a little look down below, and we can see what it's all about. So here we are down below, and as you can see, it's a pretty contemporary open space. Now, this might not necessarily appeal to traditionalists who would probably like less open space, but this is very much a cruising boat, a coastal port hopping boat, and a Mediterranean boat. After all, we are here in Slovenia with Croatia and Italy on our doorstep and Greece a little bit further south. And in this temperature and in these conditions in harbour, this feels absolutely lovely. Now, in terms of security at sea, you're going to be asking me, you come downstairs, you've got grab handles either side of the companionway, you've got 4 steps down here, they're beveled and they've got grip tape on, so they're pretty grippy coming down, and then you're straight onto these grab handles above you. If you're a shorter crew, that might not work quite so well. But you could very easily fit a grab handle on the corner of the heads compartment here, and I think that would be a nice touch. Otherwise, this is a really cool space, and just on first impressions, I really like it. We've got a chart table over here. If you watched my video from the Dusseldorf boat show, if you didn't, click here. From the Dusseldorf boat show, you'd have seen that you can have a storage unit here with big lockers down below and up above. I much prefer the chart table, but that's just personal preference. And then you've got this huge dining table here to starboard with C-shaped seating all around. And in a second, I'll get the chairs out to show you how they go in the middle. And then we've got a galley to port, and we'll have a look at that. The big table here drops down to turn this whole thing into a double berth as well. And on this boat, we've got the 3 cabin version. So we've got a compartment aft here, another double cabin aft to port, and a heads here. And then forward, we've got a single owner's cabin. There is an option for a bunk cabin to starboard as well. So a 4th cabin, which gives you another 2 berths. So that would mean you get 2, 4, 6, 8. And then if you use the double berth here, you get 10 people onto this boat. Now that might appeal to charterers, but this is going to be an owner's boat. So they've just gone for the 3 cabin, 2 head version. I think I've got those numbers right. Okay, let's have a look around. Right, coming to the chart table then, there's a fold-away seat underneath for which you pull a pin out like that, and then you've got this sort of saddle seat here, which is pretty secure. It's an outward-facing chart table, and it is big enough. There's loads of clobber in here, but got a full set of Leisure Folio charts in there, so it's big enough for your charts. That's on a gas strut, and the hinges nicely don't take up too much space. I've got drawers next to me, so winch handle stowage, binoculars, navigation instruments. It's a really nice setup. It's got a little fiddle along here so you don't lose all your bits and bobs while you're sailing, which is great. If you're using a laptop or whatever, it's a comfy enough space. And then we've got light switches. I've got this nice little light here, which can go red for night sailing or white. I've got my radio, stereo, USB ports, heating control, all that stuff. You've got this Cymarine switch panel here, which is push button on the front. But when you remove this panel and you get to the back, you've actually got physical rocker switches and fuses, so that you've got all of the sort of the manual overrides if this ever had any problems. The great thing about this as well is that it is can be remotely controlled. So from a phone app, you can, sorry, I turned off the light. You can log in and you can turn your systems on and off if you want to. And importantly, the battery isolators are actually controlled by relay switches from this panel. So you can fully isolate the boat, completely shut it down with the relay switches here, so that your batteries aren't running down out of power, and then you can still turn it all back on from your phone. So if you want to check that the bilge alarm hasn't gone off, or that you want to turn the fridge on or the heating on before you get down to the boat, you can do that remotely from your phone, even if you've completely shut your boat down. I really like that. So I think on the whole, this is a really nice little navigation station, and I would definitely opt for this if I were buying one of these boats. Now, this boat has been designed by Rob Humphries Design in the UK for the sail plan and the hull, but the deck and the interior has been designed by the design house Pininfarina. On this boat, they've gone for knotty oak, which makes it feel really different to pretty much any other boat I've been on. And I have to say that I really like it. I think it's really cool. And I think it's slightly easier to source, slightly more sustainable timber to use as well. Coupled with that, they've gone for some really sharp lines, so it doesn't just feel like a country cottage. It feels like a really cool modern boat. So you can see behind me we've got these grey fronted cupboards. So you've got top opening lockers all the way down both sides of the saloon and the galley. Just while we're in the saloon, let me tell you about the construction of this boat. So Elan have long championed vacuum infusion, and they're very proud of their 3D vacuum infusion process, which means that the hull side has longitudinal stringers, 3D stringers infused, moulded into the side as part of the structure of the boat. It's got a vacuum infused hull matrix that's not infused as part of the hull, but it's bonded into the hull, and then that is laminated into all of the box sections around the high stress keel areas. The hull itself is solid laminate around the keel and around the rudder bases, around the rudder posts. And then the hull and the deck are both vacuum infused. In terms of the materials they use vinyl ester, which is really water resistant, high quality resin in the outer skin. And then it's a foam sandwich, and on the inside they use polyester resin. So it's a really good quality construction with an eye to keeping costs down as well. In the bilge, you can see we've got really deep bilges. Let's have a look now. So you can see we've got a really deep bilge in here, and you can see the hull matrix coming all the way up. And there we've got a manual and an automatic bilge pump. And then there's a float switch just in the next section across, and there's limber holes between all of those deep bilges. And then in the bilge sections further aft, there's also some stowage space, so you can keep extra beers or whatever if you're going off longer distance cruising and you need a bit more space. The keel for this boat is cast iron. It's an L-shaped keel, and it's about 3.5 tons of ballast. The boat's just over 11 tons displacement total, so you're looking at about 30% ballast displacement ratio. Which is pretty good for a cruising boat, and you've got a really wide beam. This boat's 20 centimetres wider than the original Impression 434, and that beam is taken all the way aft to give you maximum form stability, which is why they don't need a higher ballast ratio. Pretty good stability curves if you look into those as well. So that's really good, and yeah, it's a cast iron keel. This boat's 1.95 metre draft, so 6.5 foot, but there is an option for a 1.7 metre keel, so saving yourself about a foot of draft. Right, in the galley, we've got a longitudinal galley to port side. We've got a 3-burner stove at the aft end, and that's up against the heads compartment here. It has got a crash bar. It hasn't got a bum strap. And there's nothing to brace against, particularly while you're cooking. So if you were cooking at sea, you'd probably need a little bum strap there to keep you secure while you're cooking. But then you've got this really nice 1.5 size sink with a tap that comes out to make washing the dishes a little bit easier. We've got loads of storage space underneath. You've got pan stowage there. You've got space for bins and shelves. There's your bin and fire blanket, cutlery drawer, plus all of these top opening hatches here. So you've got loads of space in here. There's nothing behind the sink or the oven. Sometimes that's a nice little touch to have. So this is probably not like a long-term liveaboard cruiser in this setup, although to be honest, I think there's probably enough space for it if it's just a couple or even a family. But it's really designed for sort of holidays, cruising holidays. And then fridge-wise, you've got a top opening fridge here, isotherm, and you could turn that into a freezer if you want it to be a freezer. And then they fit either Dometic or isotherm fridges, and we've got a front opening fridge here. So let's just open that. So that's a full-size sort of under-counter fridge. So you've got loads of room in there. Nice little touch, the fact that it's longitudinal, so that whichever tack you're on, you can open the door and everything isn't going to fall out. I really like that. That's a really good touch. Good, so that's the main part of the accommodation in the saloon. Let's have a look in the owner's cabin forward. So in the forward cabin then, got a full wide view here so you can see everything. We've got a really big locker here that's got hanging space and shelved space inside it. Underneath that there are some drawers. And then we've got this island sized bed here, full size double bed that's got decent space at the headroom. One slight thing that Elan are looking into, there's actually a ledge that comes down there, so it's a little bit not quite so comfortable for sitting up in bed. That's something that they're going to address. You've got these really nice hull windows. They're actually slightly higher up than the ones further aft, and they're aligned with the waterline. You've got steps here to help you get in and out of the bunk, out of the bed. At the moment, there's no stowage under these. Sorry, just turned the lights off on my leg. There's no stowage under these sections here, but Elan are also going to be adding stowage bins under these steps to make use of all of the space on board. What you do get under this bed is some really good stowage. So in the top drawer, this is where your folding chairs go, and you've also got the additional supports for when you drop the saloon table down to be a double berth. And then under that, there's a normal drawer for stowage. And there, and then under the bed itself, let's have a look in here. We've got water tanks, but there's actually some little stowage bins in here that are really good for shoving shoes or bags or whatever kit you want to shove in there. And then you can access the water tanks in here. There's just one water tank, big plastic water tank. And you've got space either side of that to cram extra sort of kit that you don't need ready access to. So it's not as much stowage maybe as a blue water cruiser, but it's certainly enough stowage to be more than comfortable for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, pottering around the Med, pottering along the south coast of the UK, or whatever you want to do with this boat. Let's have a look at the heads. Well, you don't necessarily need me to show you around the heads, but in here we've got a toilet, we've got a standing shower cubicle here with, just undo the catch, with these doors that pull out either side, and there's a proper shower sump in the bottom so that everything gets drained down and doesn't get the rest of the floor really wet, which works well. You've got a holding tank in here, so that's not stowage. There's a locker under there. Could do with a shelf in there to make that slightly more usable space probably. And then a bottom opening compartment there under the mirror. I'd quite like that to be top opening. I think it would make it slightly easier to use the locker. That's not a major issue at all. Slightly oddly, there's a light switch here. Why that's under the sink, I don't know. That would be slightly better on the bulkhead, I think. And then there's an additional black button to make sure you've got the last of the water from the shower out. Ventilation is pretty good too. We've got an opening hatch here. We've got an opening hatch above the galley. There we go. And we've also got two on starboard side. The aft cabins have got two opening hatches each, and the forward cabin has two opening hatches and one in the heads as well. So there's quite a good amount of ventilation on board. Right, we're in the port aft cabin now. It's a mirror image of the starboard one, and that's full of cockpit cushions and things, so I won't show you that one right now. But we've got a really good sized bed. It's 2 meters long, slightly shorter than the 205 meters, 205 centimeters in the forward cabin. That berth is 145 centimeters wide, as is this one at the head end, getting slightly narrower towards the foot end. But you've got access to the bilges, you've got some bin stowage under the seat there, and then you've got a slightly smaller locker here to starboard, which has got shelved space at the outboard side at the back, and then some hanging space towards the front, so you can hang a dress or a shirt or whatever else you want in there, whatever takes your fancy. And then we've got this really big shelf along here, so you're going to put some bags or some baskets on there to keep your stuff, but there's more than enough space to put your drink at night or your book or whatever you want to put. And then you've got this opening hatch here, and there's one at the top of the cabin as well in the coach roof. So it's a really nice space, and there's enough space to stand up and change, and you've also got access to the side of the engine, and we'll have a look at the engine now. Right, the engine on this boat that we've been testing is a Yanmar 80 horsepower with a sail drive. The standard is actually a 40 horsepower, and there's an intermediate option for a 57 horsepower. But as you can see, you've got quite a good big engine bay, so there's space to mount other systems. The calorifier is just under the floor, just under where you are. But here you've got access to the alternator belt, fuel filter, is that fuel filter? Yeah, secondary fuel filter. You've got a header tank and a water strainer at the back, and then the oil filter is accessed on port side through the, starboard side through the starboard aft cabin. Right, well that is the Elan Impression 43. I hope you've enjoyed having a look around and coming for a sail with us. I've really enjoyed it. It's been lovely to spend a couple of nights on board the boat. I've got one more night and then I'm going home tomorrow. And I think this boat works really well as a cruising boat, and out here in the Med I can see it being a huge success. I also think it would work well in the UK as a family cruising boat, a holiday boat. Might not be a long-term liveaboard cruiser, but for shorter holidays and pottering in an undemanding way, I think this boat is brilliant. The hull is easily driven. Sadly, we didn't have loads of wind, but we still got up to sort of high sixes. At one point, as the breeze got up to 11 knots, so nothing to write home about, but the boat still went really well. The layout and the layout options, I think, are sensible, that you've got 3 cabins or 4 cabins, you've got 2 heads, you've got a chart table or not chart table, and you've got this really nice big saloon table here. I think the rustic oak, I know it's a little bit divisive, some people like it, some people don't. I'm a big fan. I haven't really seen anything like this sort of knotty rustic oak on many other boats, and I think it works really well, given that it's coupled with this Pininfarina styled sort of grey sharp lines. I think they've got it just about right. I'm not sure how this boat would be in a big seaway or if you're heeling overloads. It's quite a big open space at the bottom, and I'd probably want another handhold, but those are minor things relatively. For living aboard, I can vouch that this boat is really comfortable. Just to give you some of the numbers, the boat is 13.3 metres, so that's just over 43 foot. That includes the bowsprit. It's about a foot shorter without the bowsprit, so it's not a very big bowsprit. Most of that goes into waterline. You've got 40-foot waterline, and the draft, as I said, is 1.95 with a 1.7 option if you want the shoal draft version. Displacement is 11.1 tonnes with ballast of 3.5 tonnes, so that's a fairly healthy ballast displacement ratio. And the sail area, if you go for the standard self-tacking jib, which isn't fitted to this boat, is 81 square metres of sail, 870 square feet. In terms of price, I think she's actually a fairly sensible price for a boat of this type and of this quality, because I've been really impressed with how well finished she is. The base price is £300,000 ex VAT. Now, this boat's got a few additional extras, but a sort of a normal sail away price for the spec that most cruising sailors are going to go for. You're looking at about 325,000 euros rather than pounds, so slightly less than that, about £300,000 sail away price, including VAT. That's it for me tonight. I'm going to go and have a beer and see you all at the next boat test.